Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our publishing and coaching services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Sarah Buchanan, author of That Book That I Wrote About Me, a novel. Yes, that is actually the title of the book. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I'm happy to be here.
And I got to tell you, I think that's the best title I've seen for a book.
It came about really organically. I put up a picture of myself holding up the finished book, and it said, "That book I wrote," and it just kind of evolved from that. It was relevant to the story, and I'm really happy with it. The title was the last thing I did, so I'm happy it turned out to be something that, as it turns out, people really like.
Excellent. So let's go ahead and dig into the questions. I'd like to ask you, what is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
What I would say to that is to have kind of a tribe behind you, not necessarily, obviously you need people to read it and to edit and to do things like that, but have people supporting what you're doing. You say to people, oh yeah, I'm writing a book. And then they want to hear about it. They want to hear about your progress. And if you're like me and kind of let it sit for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, you have people asking you, hey, I'm really looking forward to reading your book or reading the next part of your book if you've given them something already. So a support system, I think, is definitely important, especially for first-time authors, because it's quite a roller coaster, as I found.
Yeah, definitely getting that first book. It's all about that journey, and the more support that you can have with that first launch, the better.
Oh, for sure. It was, and I happened to have a good group of people in my corner, so it turned out well for me.
And what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
I mean, besides actually writing it, it's a lot. There are a lot more moving parts that I anticipated. I always thought, you sit down, you write a book, and then something happens and people read it. But yeah, that's not how it goes. And I learned that specifically trying to be my own editor, which I do not recommend. I always thought, oh yeah, I'm a good editor. I can edit my own stuff. That is not true. So the hardest thing that I found is just anticipating all the things that need to be done. The editing, trying to publicize, distribution, all stuff like that. I heard someone say once that writing the book was the easy part, and I laughed at that, but as it turns out, that is very true.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. When I'm doing seminars and even doing web classes as well, that's the first thing I mention is the easiest part about getting published is the writing part. The hardest part is the editing and the proofing, and then with that, the rest of the process. And I've had so many clients come to me, they're just so overwhelmed by the process. And I have to tell them, hey, this is why you need a coach. This is why you need someone to do it for you, because if you don't have the time to deal with it, it can become very overwhelming. There's nothing difficult, but there's so many tedious little aspects that go with it that it can really become stressful over time.
That is, I can 100% agree with that, yes.
Well, let's talk about the other fun part, and of course that's the marketing side. So please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
The thing that I thought for me was going to be the most important is to have people read it and review it that I didn't know. So I did a ton of research, one of those things going back to the hardest part of writing a book, all the research that's involved. But I found blogs, I found websites that will do reviews. And along the way I ran into a lot of, send us $50 and we'll write a positive review, but that's not what you want. You want people to read it and say, hey, this is good, or, this is okay, and here's how it could have been better. But getting people in the industry, even if it's on the fringes of the industry, like I mentioned, the smaller blogs, they still have readers, and those readers still read books, and they take the recommendations of the reviewers. And so my main thing, like I said, was people who don't know me reading it and giving their honest opinion of it, and then also finding those reviewers that are willing to put their reviews elsewhere other than a blog, like the Goodreads reviews and the Amazon reviews and stuff like that, because I know a lot of people who have self-published and done their own publishing, and then they go in and get their friends and their relatives and everyone to go in and write a 5-star review, but that's kind of disingenuous. It's of course your mom likes your book. It's a given. But if, Joan in Minnesota likes your book, then maybe you're onto something.
Yeah, I agree with you about the philosophy. I mean, you never want family members to really do reviews. It's always good to reach out to friends and supporters. But if you can avoid utilizing family, that's always good, especially moms and dads, maybe cousins from time to time. But, when you actually are reaching out, getting those reviews. And the other thing, too, what a lot of people always need to be aware of is you don't want to ask for a 5-star review. What you want to ask for is an honest review. And for most of the time, they're going to be fair with you. You're typically going to get 4-star or 5-star reviews just because they're going to be very fair about it. But that's the other thing, too. You never want to ask for a 5-star review because that can be definitely can be a sticky wicket.
Oh, for sure. Yes.
Now, you mentioned finding blogs and websites to find reviewers. Were there any specific methods or tips or tricks that you'd like to share with us about how you did that?
Well, I started out with a general Google search, just book reviews. And then from there, I kind of narrowed it down. Like I mentioned, the ones that you have to pay for. Didn't want that. No. And looked for ones that had not huge followings, but enough of a following to where, people are taking it seriously. And then I also looked at reviews that the people that I was asking for reviews from had written, just to kind of see what their method was, because you have to narrow it down. If I'm trying to publicize a mainstream fiction novel, which is what mine is, I wouldn't want to go to somebody who specializes in sci-fi, because they're not going to like it. Well, I mean, I hope they would like it, but in general, that's not what they review. And there are several websites out there that will give you lists of places where you can go to find reviews. And some people will say, no, I'm not interested in reviewing your book. Doesn't sound like something that I'm really into. And it's kind of like trying to find a publishing house, I guess. You kind of throw your stuff out there, and then the ones that are most relevant to what you're trying to do will get back to you.
So some of these websites actually would give you a list of potential people to reach out to get reviews? Yes, there are. And of course, I can't right offhand think of the ones that I use, but there are a lot of legit ones through, I can't remember if Writer's Digest had a list or not, but just different legit publications will say, yeah, come over here if you're looking for somebody to review your work. They make you do the legwork to find the ones that are relevant to what you're trying to do. But there's several spots online, and really it's pretty easy if you just Google book reviews. The good stuff tends to float to the top, so you'll see those first. Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book, and what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
My favorite book, whenever anyone asks me that, no one has ever heard of it. It's a novel called Mrs. Bridge by Evan Connell, or Connell. I'm not sure actually how to pronounce his name, but I had to read it for a class that I took in college, and I read it, and it was literally life-altering, just in the way that he wrote it. And the thing, as far as writing goes, that I learned from that book is that less is more a lot of the time. You don't have to write a really dense book with all kinds of big words that sound impressive. And if you're just telling a story, you tell it the best way you can. Mrs. Bridge is very close to Hemingway, I think, where he tells you what's going on and uses normal words to tell you what's going on, and you get it, and it paints a picture for you, but you still, I don't know, you have a little bit of opportunity to expand on the scene in your own head. It's not minimalist, but it's just beautiful, and it shows that you don't have to, there's no correct way to write a book, because Mrs. Bridge is written in a series of vignettes, and some of them are half a page long and some of them are 6 pages long, but they all fit together to tell this story. And it was like nothing that I had ever read to that point, and it's the one book that I make it a point to read every year. I haven't read it for 2018 yet, but it's one of the next ones on my list.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I pretty much love anything Stephen King has ever said. His book on writing is one of my absolute favorites, but he said one of the things that he said, and again, pertaining to writing, because that's what most of my life revolves around, he said that the road to hell is paved with adverbs. And that, to me, is, I don't know, maybe I'm just a huge nerd, but one of the funniest things that I ever heard, because you get these books that they're telling you, oh, he slammed the door angrily. Well, yeah, he did, because he wouldn't be slamming the door if he were happy about it. So it kind of plays into my whole writing philosophy, which, again, less is more. The fewer words you can use to paint a vivid picture of what you're trying to say, the better.
Well, Sarah, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
So I am a big Instagram person. That's my main, as far as social media goes, that's my main target, I guess. And my username on Instagram is Sarah Buchanan Writes. And then also, as far as my book goes, that is available on Amazon, either in ebook or softcover form.
Well, Sarah, thanks again for being a guest on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you very much. I had a blast being here.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how to get your book published with a proven system that works, grab a free copy of my book at getpublishedpodcast.com.